So I'm going to go ahead and just start with my conclusion today and then work backwards. So for those of you who might tend to doze off during sermons and only come back at the very end, this one's for you. Here's the conclusion of the sermon today. We need the church because we cannot live by bread alone. We need something more than just what the world gives us. We need the church for strength, for history, to keep us from wandering in the desert way too long. We need the church to help us grapple with life itself. We need the church to help us struggle through temptation and trials. Jesus had the Spirit. We're lucky because we've got the church and the Spirit. We need the church to help us not just have some myopic view of the world. We need the church to help us celebrate with joy. And we need the church to be with us in those really bad times of life. That was the conclusion. Come back with me later if you want to. Now back to Deuteronomy. This is the climax to the Exodus story. Now imagine this. After 39 years, 11 months, and 1 week in the wilderness, the Israelites are gathered on the plains of Moab, and they're poised to enter the promised land. After nearly 40 years of feeling lost and unsure, having had to learn a mountain of laws and rules after being chastised for bad behavior, often well-deservedly, and after having spent a good deal of their sojourn being confused, underfed, and poorly housed, wondering why in the world they left Egypt in the first place, here they sit on the highlands overlooking the Jordan River Valley, the promised land lying at a distance. Everything that they had endured, worked for, sacrificed, all in a moment is in their reach. And now the text starts. When you get there, you shall take some of the first fruit of the ground, put it in a basket, and as an act of grateful memory, present it to the priests. It's kind of like it's a reminder to them. It's a reminder of all that God has been for them in the wilderness. And they show forth their gratitude by remembering God's providence. Remember. The text in Deuteronomy, you might say, is about roots. The church is about roots, reminding us that we cannot live by bread alone. We, like the Israelites, must remember from whence we cometh. Now, the Greeks believed that the goddess of memory, and I can't pronounce her name for the life of me, but the goddess of memory was the mother of imagination. For Israel, memory was more often the mother of faith. The way God's promises were rehearsed and reclaimed and renamed and claimed anew. So in this text from Deuteronomy, we see how they were to give first fruits. In other words, to develop this attitude of gratitude, remembering those ancestors that had gone before them, those ancestors that have helped us get where we are today. And then that great line that I almost named the homily this, but I figured it would be a little strange. That line that it says, when you get to the priest, say this: a wandering Aramaean was my ancestor. Lent is a great time for us to remember, to take that opportunity in our faith community that we call church to remember our collective history, the good and the bad, to repent of the bad and to cling to the good. So what does all this Deuteronomy talk have to do with the temptations of Jesus? The story in Deuteronomy ends in celebration and praise, which through its long and crazy way, Lent prepares us also to offer praise to the one who will not even let death silence God's love for the world. You see, not to sing in the company of our fellow wandering world would be to fail miserably in understanding where Lent is to take us. Thomas Curry says it this way: it would be to starve ourselves on our own self-sufficiencies rather than taste the banquet that has been prepared. Not by bread alone. Jesus' very first temptation, and that's the one we'll focus on mostly today, his first temptation came after not eating for 40 days. And it says he was famished. And the devil said to him, "If you're the Son of God, command this stone to become a loaf of bread." And Jesus answered from none other than Deuteronomy when he said, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." I don't know about you, but after 40 days of not eating, I think I would have turned all the stones I could find into bread if I had that power. But I think that temptation could be better stated as it was stated in a couple of the other Gospels. Instead of temptation, let's call it testing. These testings are tests to see whether even good things can lure Jesus from a focus on God's will. Good things that can lure the church into things other than what our mission should be. The devil's challenges to Jesus are not bad things. Help your hunger. Turn these stones into bread. Feed the world. Bread is good, but it's not sufficient to define Jesus' mission. Good, but not the best. Not by bread alone. Thomas Merton put forward a test for the church and its ministries that I would like to reissue to you today. I want you to hear this because I've got it written on little cards posted everywhere for me to hear over and over again during this Lenten season. Thomas Merton posed this question to the church during the Lenten season: what do we have to offer the world that the world doesn't already have more of than it needs? What do we have to offer the world that the world doesn't already have more of than it needs? Oh, that question is going to linger for me this Lenten season. Because you see, the church is tempted like Jesus. We're tempted to be cool, to catch the attention by doing something bigger and better, to do the spectacular. But the world needs more than just manna from heaven. As Glenn Henson says, human beings shall not live by bread alone. That is, not the kind of bread that we're talking about. The kind of bread they need is the living bread, the bread that lasts forever. They need God. So as we come to this table today, on this first Sunday of Lent, we call to our attention that though the world needs perishable bread, it needs even more imperishable bread. The bread from the one who said, "I am the bread of life." So in this Lenten journey, maybe we should not think about what we can give up, but rather maybe we, like the Israelites and Jesus, need to face that complacency of believing that God is no longer necessary. Dealing a little bit with our spiritual forgetfulness. Because God has been our help in ages past, and we should be grateful. And oh, how the church has such deep roots. That's the point of a wandering Aramaean was my ancestor. We need to remember. We need to remember that Jesus says that the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. Even though evil will try to get us off course and get us sidetracked on some good things. But we need to get back to the mission of the church. We are on this Lenten journey together, remembering, like the Israelites, to have this attitude of gratitude, remembering how we got here, remembering to join together with the Spirit of God in our tests and our trials. Susan Gregg Schroeder says it this way in her beautiful poem, "Sojourners in faith. Come along with me as a sojourner in faith. Bring along a sense of expectancy, a vision of high hopes, a glimpse of future possibility, a vivid imagination. For God's creation is not done. We are called to pioneer forth toward a future unnamed. As we venture forward, we leave behind our desires for a no-risk life, worldly accumulations, certainty of answers. So let us travel light in the spirit of faith and expectation toward the God of our hopes and dreams. Let us be a witness to God's future breaking in. Come along with me as a sojourner of faith, secure in the knowledge that we are never alone. Or put that another way, reminds me of an episode of the Andy Griffith TV show. It was early in the series. You probably remember this if you followed Andy Griffith, the show. It was early in the series, and it was following the death of Andy's wife. Well, Sheriff Taylor decided to invite his spinster Aunt Bee to come live with Opie and him, thinking that she would add that missing feminine touch. Surprisingly, Opie is not too pleased for Aunt Bee to come and try to replace his mother. Well, Andy tries to help the situation by inviting Aunt Bee to go fishing and frog catching with them so that Opie can become attached to her. Instead, Aunt Bee fails miserably at fishing, frogging, and later even football. Well, finally, late at night, Opie is in bed, and Aunt Bee talks Andy into taking her to the bus station to head back to Siler City. Well, Opie hears her crying beneath his bedroom window and guesses that she is leaving, and he runs down the stairs and to the truck exclaiming, "We can't let her go, Paul. She needs us. She can't even catch frogs, take fish off the hook, or throw a football. We've got to take care of her, or she'll never make it." You see, we need each other. That is what the church is. We're flawed, yes. We've made mistakes, yes. But guess what? People are not looking for perfection or polish or pious professionalism. They're looking for real people who are willing to admit that they do not have it all together, but realize that we're in this together. So on this first Sunday of Lent, let us meet at this table because we cannot live by bread alone. We need the one who said, "I am the bread of life." Every communion, you might say, challenges us with this. Will we live by the fast food that comes our way alone? Or will we eat manna that only perishes? Or will we let our participation in this holy sacrament open our inner eyes and hearts to God with us? Church, team union, let us gather around the table, remembering that we cannot live by bread alone, remembering in gratitude, remembering all that have gone before us, remembering that a wandering Aramaean was our ancestor, remembering that the Spirit of God binds us together to be the bread broken for our world and the love of Christ poured out for all. So let us join at the table.